Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I'm here on the Scoop Studio at SMT Nuremberg, and I'm joined by Tom Forsythe from Kyzen. Tom, thanks for stopping by. Always good to chat.
My pleasure.
Lots going on at the moment in terms of the data privacy thing. How's that impacting your business, and how does it affect the way you do business here in Europe?
Well, it's a funny thing, right? Like we're in the cleaning business, so you wouldn't think it had anything to do with our business. But it turns out that we're all in the global economy, and someone makes a rule somewhere, and it oddly enough has an impact. I think the most broad-based one that touches us, at the first step really, is this whole idea on the email side. Lord knows we could all use less email, so it's hard to disagree with something that might help. I say might because the bad guys never seem to follow the rules anyway, but this whole double opt-in thing, and so I know my email box, and I think everyone else has sort of had a flurry of opt-in things a couple weeks ago, but I think that's the simplest one. The more challenging in some space. I'm not so sure in the B2B space where pretty much everyone here is this whole idea of privacy content, right? We all have our employees, and frankly, there's been loads of rules for loads of years about how you safeguard people's various ID numbers and birthdays, and I'm not so sure the world needed another set of rules for that, because I think there were plenty of rules laying around. But that's a piece of this thing that bleeds over into the customer side. Certainly in the B2C world, they do have lots of private information, right? They'll have addresses and maybe some ID numbers and maybe credit cards. And I think the credit card one is the one that's kind of a potential risk factor for people. We made a policy years ago and said, we don't really do that much credit card stuff. We're just not going to retain any of that. And even though the computer system would be happy to retain it, we're going to elect a different path. But I'm sure larger companies made a different choice. So therefore, that's kind of a piece of this puzzle. But that's kind of a curious thing. How much of this information, if I've got your email address, your work email address for your enterprise, is that privacy information? I'm not so sure. I think there's some uncertainty about that, and I think that's the piece that's going to unfold over the next few months. Is that'll bring better definition. Somebody will get angry about something, and they'll be the regulators will kind of be a bit more clear. But it's. And then, of course, it's pulling it into your ISO program. Oh, yeah, this is what we do when we do this and do that, and making sure that stuff documented. But a funny thing, here we are. We've got a Belgian company, an American company, a China company. We don't have it seems to me this all started in Germany, but yet it affects all of us.
Yeah, it impacts everywhere. But I think, interestingly, it plays to maybe a bigger story, which is the whole thing of data security. And, as we watch what's unfolded with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook and all those instances that we constantly see of failures in the protection of data. At the same time, we're talking to contract manufacturers and saying, hey, let's crank all that information up into the cloud, which might be commercially sensitive information, but it's going to be secure there. But is it?
Absolutely, and I think that's the key. One of the things, as we got into the data business with the cleaning stuff over the last year or two, and even before maybe this GDPR thing was on the scope, it wasn't on our scope at the time, but we said, we have a lot of customers that make a lot of interesting things, and the cleaning data, frankly, doesn't mean anything unless have some way to tie it to that interesting thing. So we made an elected decision and said, we're going to have all this data blowing around, and even if we get a barcode scan or something and we know what it is, that's not going anywhere. That's an easy correlate thing, right? Somebody can pull out a piece of paper and sort that fast. And we made that decision in the beginning because we said, without that information, there's nothing confidential, classified, nothing, anything. The fact that somebody's running at 65C and 0.5 meters per minute doesn't help anybody. But I think it's that kind of thinking it through that's a key part of this. It's like there's a big discussion. I was at a conference out on the West Coast recently, a week or two ago, and they're talking about I heard somebody say, well, goodness, we don't want to put all that data up on the cloud. And I was like, wow, that's like the opposite I've heard every single person say until this moment. And then that that person started talking about edge computing. That says, oh no, we're going to put a lot of this stuff on the edge, and edge is this like under the roof thing, right? Because we're going to do a lot of computing there, and it'll be faster, and I was like, that's really interesting. So now all of a sudden we don't want to send everything to the cloud. I wonder what's going on with that.
Yeah.
And
well, there's part of that cloud debate and that edge computing debate is being discussed in the automotive industry. In the case of autonomous driving, 5G is supposed to be coming along, zero latency, huge capacity for data, faster processing speeds than the human mind.
That's what we said about 4G.
And that's what we said. That's what we said about 4G. But
and 3G and
but
LTE or whatever.
Are you going to trust your autonomous vehicle to be connected to the 5G network? Because when your phone goes off the network and you don't get your email, it's inconvenient.
Right.
When your driver support goes off, it's a different ballgame.
Well, and I think, I was at another conference in Amsterdam a month or two ago where a couple of interesting things came out about the electric cars. Some of the automotive guys were talking about the service factor calculations for reliability and useful life. And the electric car figures are triple what the standard cars are. And you go, well, why is that? Why? This isn't fundamentally going to change driving patterns other than maybe you're going to stop a bit more on a long trip. Well, it turns out that part of the thinking is once electric cars are ubiquitous, when they're really, really available everywhere, well, why would you own an electric car and only run it 3 hours a day?
Right.
Why wouldn't you rent your electric car to Uber and have it run the other 19 hours a day when you don't need it?
Yeah.
Right? And this, of course, is totally clear thinking that never, of course, passed through my mind.
Yeah.
But it had a big impact on the reliability of devices. But it also comes back to this idea of, okay, how is that going to work? How is that data feed going to work? Yeah. Are they going to do this edge computing on telephone poles because things do happen and things do go down? What's the backup system going to be? For you, as you know, I was a pilot when I was a young guy, and as pilots, we always had some funny things. It's like when a car stops, it's inconvenient, and some days it's really inconvenient. When the noise stops on an airplane, it's that z-axis is a bit more troubling. Well, it's kind of the same thing with the car stuff. If you're going down the path and you lose the signal, so is it going to stop on the motorway at 120? Or is it just going to keep going and hope it picks up a signal like the GPS in the tunnels? Is things will be okay on the other side? How's that all going to go? I don't know how it's going to go.
I'm just going to say, wake up, Tom. It's down to you again.
Yeah, but suppose I was napping, this is an autonomous car. The vision is there's not even a steering wheel, right? So I just think these are the things that are going to get sorted out. But the trick is reliability and serviceability, not only from the signal, but of course the components. As a cleaning guy, I'm thrilled because, of course, automotive people led the charge into no clean, and that was the industry that made the concept of no clean residues real.
Yeah.
And they may be leading it back out the other side because the risk factors are going up exponentially and the cost of cleaning is tiny.
Yeah, and
we
want more reliable product. We want product to last longer. That's environmentally sound. It's World Environmental Day today, and ocean plastics are the theme. It's also World Moonshine Day. Strange coincidence. I can't quite figure out how they go.
Product.
There you go. And hopefully delivered in glass bottles, not plastic.
I think almost always in glass bottles, oddly enough.
Tom, I'm so glad you got it back round to cleaning at the end, but always a pleasure to chat and always fun. Thanks a lot.
Take care.